What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Save Continue podcast. I believe episode 108.
Probably.
Correct me if I'm wrong. My name is Tommy Shelby. With me, as always, Mr. Ryan Robinson.
Hello.
And back from her crusade, Shanae Howard.
Hey.
A lot of people missed you, Shanae.
Oh,
Well, not a lot, but a few people missed you.
Yeah.
that's nice.
How do you start this? Oh, yeah, you can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher,
Yeah, you're doing great.
Android stuff. You can find us all over the place.
Just type in Save Continue Podcast into your preferred podcast provider.
We're most likely there.
Yeah.
This week, I guess we'll start off with trivia,
Okay.
as we do.
Okay.
So, I don't know how well this will go. So, at first I was going to make you guys guess the exact number, but I was like, you're not going to get it. If you do, it's just going to be off of luck. So, let's say whoever gets closest to this number wins.
Oh, yay.
Okay.
I might have a chance.
How
are
many?
we doing Price is Right rules? Or is closer in general?
Just closer in general.
Okay.
The Saboteur.
Right. No.
Oh, my God.
How many total games, not just released in the U.S., but released worldwide, how many total titles were released for the Nintendo Virtual Boy?
Nintendo Virtual Boy?
Yeah.
Worldwide.
I'll tell you this. It's not a lot.
Okay.
40.
Since you're saying not a lot, 26.
Shanae wins.
Yeah!
The answer is 22.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And a tremendous amount of those weren't even released in the States. So, yeah, 22 total games on a console.
I played-
Isn't that nuts?
I played what I believe was Mario Tennis,
There is a Mario Tennis.
and also what I believe to be some kind of boxing game.
Cool. I've never played the thing.
You're not missing anything.
Oh, I'm so excited I won.
Yeah.
So Shanae gets the opportunity to use Can I Finish in case anyone interrupts her. She also gets the chance to promote whatever she wants, game related or not, at the end of the show.
Plug it up.
Let's get started.
Oh,
You guys
man.
want to do what you've been playing or no?
Kind
I mean, one of yours is going to fall into the conversation. But
Okay. Okay. Well,
fuck it. Ryan, what have you been playing?
okay, so cool. Thanks. All right. I've been playing some oldies and some kind of some new ones too. So because I just got my computer, I've been playing some games that I missed out on. I started recently playing Heroes of the Storm,
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
and I have,
Asmodan.
yeah,
Basketball Asmodan.
trying to look. Here's the thing: is you can earn heroes by playing that. As I did this morning, I played one match. Boom, 2 heroes are mine because I opened a loot box. So that was pretty rad. But Tom and I, Tom was here when I first installed that game. Well, yeah, he was here because we were at his house when it happened. And we were looking through the skins for all the heroes. We saw Asmodan from Diablo 3, and one of his skins was he was wearing a basketball uniform, and
With lots of sweatbands.
lots of sweatbands because he's got a lot of limbs. And the
Lot of
skin
sweat.
variant is called Asmodunk.
Ooh.
And it costs a lot of the premium currency to get him.
We don't even know if Asmodan's any good in that game.
We don't.
But we want him.
But like that kind of informed whether or not I was gonna stick with that game. Was well, that's not true. But I mean, it is a fun game. It's cool because I've never been into MOBAs. There hasn't been a MOBA that I could play and been like, I'm having a good time right now. And there hasn't been a MOBA where after I played it, I was like, I'd like to play a little bit more of that later on.
Well, we've talked about how welcoming Blizzard games are to
Yeah.
newcomers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that tutorial was entertaining yet informative, and I don't feel like I'm contributing very much, and I don't fully understand how the game works, but
You're having a great time.
I'm having a pretty good time. So far that I'm playing that. Also, Shanae, check this out, man.
All right, checking it out.
Ruiner.
Yes. Ooh. Yes.
It's like I've heard people describe it as Blade Runner meets Hotline Miami. I've only seen the first 15 minutes of Blade Runner, so I can't attest to that. But
you expressed interest last night. You saw it in my collection. You're
yeah,
like, hey, Tom, can we watch
Let's
that?
go ahead and take a look, because that's the director's cut, right?
I don't remember if I had the director's cut or the final cut.
Yeah.
But all 3 versions of that movie are great.
Yeah, so looking forward to watching that. But yeah, Ruiner is a game that I've been having a lot of fun with. For those of you who don't know, Ruiner is this it's a cyberpunk isometric action game.
26 year.
Basic premise of the game is that you're this cyborg killer man, and you're basically
Oh, I thought you were the fellow from Watch Dogs 2.
that would be really cool, but you're not.
They got the same head though.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Except like with the guy from Watch Dogs 2 with his mask is a bunch of all this is a bunch of cutesy emoji shit, and the guy from Ruiner, and like his mask will like when he's in a killing mood, his mask will just scroll "kill you" over and over again. Sometimes commercials will scroll across that thing. It's really weird.
Buy Ruiner on Steam.
All the implications for in-game advertising that go along with that. But no, I've been having a lot of fun with the game. It's a twin stick radial shooter where there's a lot. You're mixing between melee and shooting as the situation calls for it. The melee attack is mapped to one button. The shooting is mapped to another button, and you kind of just switch between the two as you like. There's a huge skill tree to get all these skills, and you use skill points. The cool thing about it though is you can turn skills on and off. So when you turn off a skill, you get back the skill point that's used on that. You
For
can
different situations.
and you just put it somewhere else. So I thought that was really neat. So I've been having a lot of fun with that game. Also, I was thinking of buying SteamWorld Dig 2, specifically because the main robot girl in that game has the same name as my mom. So
Okay.
SteamWorld Dig 2 is not procedurally generated like the first one was, which I like because reviews of that game say that it gives like
more.
there's intent behind enemy placement and things
Yeah.
of that nature.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, and
Because I'm not going to play that game more than once anyway.
yeah, I watched the trailer of that game, and I really liked what I saw. I liked what I can see the overall presentation of the game is. So very much looking forward to that. Sinead, when you were at Coachella, did you play any games?
Not at Burning Man Coachella. No. I was hanging out with Steven, and he brought a Switch, and we talked about playing Mario.
Like he brought it with him?
Yes.
Okay.
Mario what?
Mario Kart.
Mm.
Yeah, it just never happened. We just kept talking about it, and we just kept liking the fact that we could play it.
Sure.
Sometimes that's all you need.
That's
really.
enough.
Yeah.
You don't need to play games. Just know that you can.
Yeah, when you don't have when you don't have signal at all for days.
Yeah.
Just knowing that you can.
Is that why you weren't responding to anything that we said?
Yeah,
Oh.
I lost
A
signal.
likely excuse.
I lost signal like 30 minutes before we got to where we were staying. There was no signal at all where I was.
You were in Utopia, Texas?
Yes, camping on a ranch.
Tom and I went to Utopia, Texas when we
his
were in
main
high
festival
school
thing.
once.
Mm-hmm.
We camped in our cars.
I'm pretty sure we saw the Chupacabra that night.
They say that, but
Something jumped on the hood of the car. We don't know what it was.
It was me.
We actually think it might have been Lance's drunk Uncle Gino.
I think I mentioned before I already beat Persona and I'm playing Persona New Game Plus because I love it. And I'm already on the third palace. Even though I haven't really got that much time to play, since New Game Plus makes it super easy. I also have been dropping again.
okay. I haven't heard you say that in a while.
I thought we were over this.
Oh, so you're no longer carping?
No, I beat all of Magikarp Jump.
Yeah.
I
Not really a reason to go back to that game, right?
Yeah, they finally stopped making more levels and tiers for it.
There'll be more.
You'll be back.
And oh no, like they've like put out like they're done. This is it. And I have done all of it. So I can go and like just make like the world's strongest Magikarp, I guess, but I don't really want to do that. I just want to drop now. Sailor Moon drops has been pretty fun. They've updated a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
I've been playing like a couple new mobile Otome games I'll probably talk about in the next couple weeks.
I actually have an Otome what I believe to be an Otome that I got in a Humble Bundle the other day, and I haven't redeemed the key, and I figured you'd like it because I'm not going to play it.
What is it? Hustle Cat or Cat's Hustle?
No.
Okay.
Maybe Catafish.
I don't know.
Cat,
It
well,
just looked like a
like
Otome.
Hustle Cat or Cat's Hustle. I can't remember how it goes, but I know those two words are in it. It was in a recent Humble Bundle. So
Were you excited for it?
Is that an Otome?
Can you
Yeah.
just say thank you to Ryan?
thank you, Ryan. Sorry, I wasn't trying to be
Jesus.
ungrateful.
Oh, also Zombie Army Trilogy. I'm playing that too. Fun game.
Yeah, we need to get on
do
that together. We also need to get a Shania copy of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
My I kind of had a little mini breakdown about not having a computer for the last couple months.
Yeah, because when you get a computer, no one can fuck with you.
Now people fuck with you all the time.
Yeah.
Well, like
They don't do the list.
because basically, like
Like, imagine if you had a
within the
computer,
what-
Berto would
can
do the
I
list.
finish?
Oop.
Oh, 10 minutes, Ryan.
10 minutes. Okay.
Good use, by the way. Good use of Can I Finish. We haven't
my-
seen it. We haven't used it in a while.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, I like the first week I moved into my apartment, I cracked the screen of my laptop. So not that my laptop is the most like powerful thing, but I do have games on there, and
Right.
I miss having a computer. I'm so tired of looking at everything on my phone and having all the sites I'm looking at and trying to read stuff on.
Yeah.
Being on the mobile sites, I hate it.
Well, you're
And
like,
I-
you see a game, you're like, man, sure wish I could play that.
I know. I
Yeah.
know. Like I could play PUBG on my computer. It
Right.
was fine. Anyways.
I mean, if you could play PUBG, there's a lot you could play.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm saying like it's not the most powerful thing, but it's like it works. I
Sure.
could play Grand Theft Auto 5 on it. Not great, but could. So anyways, I had a little breakdown about it with Berto, because I was gonna either
Is
way,
it on the list?
no,
Okay.
but he had like eventually I broke down. He got a screen shipped. He's gonna replace it for me sometime this week. I'm super excited to have a computer again.
Good
I've
job,
missed
Berto.
it.
Do
Thank
it.
you, Berto.
Okay, so we're going to get into this. This is a question from a listener. Mr. James Sandusky, I believe it is.
Real quick though, once you finish the quote, you can talk, Ryan.
Okay. So he says, okay, so question for y'all. My dad and I have had an argument for years about games. He will see me play old retro games and ask how I can play them because the graphics are, in quotes, terrible. I say it's because of the gameplay or the story that I like them. However, he, as well as my cousins, say that graphics make the game. What is it that y'all feel is the make or break for games between graphics, story, and gameplay? So we're going to take a deep dive into this. I'm going to give my response to him, and then I'll see what you guys have to say, just as a general response to this question. I said, Tommy here. Personally, I play games that are old and new for all three of these reasons. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. I love games like Bound for its visuals. The gameplay and story are subpar, but I've never seen movement like that in a game. Then there's Gone Home. There's no real gameplay to speak of, and it looks dated the day that it came out, but that story stuck with me. Tetris has to be one of my favorite games ever, and the only thing good about that is the gameplay. They all three have their merits, and it's hard to say one is more important than the other. That's why Odin Sphere is probably my favorite game of all time. It ticks all three boxes for me. As for good graphics, well, that fades, right? I used to think Donkey Kong Country or Unreal or Dead Space had gorgeous graphics, but even Dead Space is starting to show its age. The art in something like Odin Sphere, Okami, or even Metal Slug will always look good, though. So I think style, art style can be important. What do you guys think about this, just generally?
We've talked about it on different like kind of topics in the past, just like touching on different points of it. But basically, how immersive the game is how I think the game is good or not. And the game can be really immersive because of gameplay, just great gameplay.
Sure.
To where you can forget about the graphics. The immersion can just be on the story, and the immersion could just be on the visuals. So it's pretty similar to yours, but yeah, like immersion to what I'm doing and how am I enjoying this? Am I wanting to continue to play this? Am I feeling satisfied from it? Is it hitting like a power fantasy? Is it making me feel good? Am I feeling like I'm figuring something out and it's like fun? Like, why am I immersed? Why am I playing this? And any of those could be the reason why.
Real quick, Ryan, your muscles look big like that.
Yeah,
That's why I
they
sit,
do.
camera?
That's why I sit like this.
Yeah.
Because they look big
Yeah, they
when I
do.
do that. I don't work out at all. It's just all natural, baby.
Ryan, general thoughts on gameplay versus graphics versus story? I'd say you could even throw in other things like music in there.
Well, see, I think it's interesting that his dad has that perspective because, like in terms of graphics, like he's playing old games, right? So that shit's relative. I think but it's kind of funny
So,
because
but I wouldn't say graphics. I would just say visuals, right?
Sure.
Because there are games that graphically aren't great, right? But like visually, still hold up extremely well.
yeah, and like you said, I think art style is definitely a big part of it. And I feel as if when we think of games aging visually, we relegate that largely to 3D games.
Sure, but I think that even works with 3D games, right? Like the Wind Waker has aged better than Twilight Princess, even
Sure.
though Twilight Princess is the newer game.
Sure. I think that is very true, and I think honestly, as far as gameplay plus graphics plus anything else, I think that the more dated the game looks or whatever, I think, or the worse the graphics are, sometimes the stronger the other two elements have to be to compensate for that. But it also, I guess, kind of goes for, it depends for me, like what tone are they going for with this game, right? Like,
Creator's intent.
yeah, like what tone are you going for with the game? Is that like Mutant Mudds, for example?
Oh yeah.
There was a very obvious intention with the design of that game. So, the graphics, they're supposed to look like that,
Right.
There's the very kind of visual style that they're going for with that game.
Looks like a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah. Whereas with like we'll take a game like Silent Hill 1.
Right.
I could
Foggy fog.
Yeah. I could still play that game and be entertained by. Well, entertained is a weird word to use. I should say more like terrified by it.
Yeah, I was thinking Fatal Frame
Yeah.
is so old now, but I think I would still be
Like, it's-
I'd still be creeped.
It's not a good looking game by any means, but like
Jump scare could still get you or whatever.
yeah, like there are elements in that game that can still very much affect me the way that they did 20 years ago.
Right.
I guess it's all the overall design of the game. Especially with games like that, especially with a game like Silent Hill 1 that looks ugly as hell now.
So like with James, like James seems to obviously favor graphics.
Sure.
Or not
His
graphic
dad.
gameplay. He seems to favor gameplay
Yeah.
over visuals and story.
Sure.
What's a old ass game that you think is still just as good as it was back then?
Zombies Ate My
because
Neighbors.
of the gameplay.
Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
That's a good ass answer.
I was thinking about it. Honestly, this entire time, I'm just like.
But that game still looks good though too. Like it doesn't look bad. If that
it
game came out
looks-
today, it would still sell.
Yeah.
I think it looks very dated. I played it a couple years ago.
I don't think it does, man. The fucking baby still looks creepy as hell. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like my nephews wouldn't be interested.
Like I think something more like you guys love River City Ransom, right? Mm-hmm. That game does not look good. Even when it came out, it looked like mediocre.
I
think
I'm gonna disagree.
Okay.
Those knockout faces,
I think River City
works
Ransom.
of art.
River City Ransom is really more of like what's going on under the hood of that game. Like what are all the systems at work? Like you have all the RPG elements and the brawling and like the open world element of the game. I think that's what really made the game shine at the time.
Yeah.
Now as far as games that like are like old as hell but still good today, like my mind immediately goes to Doom. Like Doom is
Visually no longer impressive.
right, but like that game is still so goddamn good.
Still fun to play. Recently, you and I played a little bit of Quake 1.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that still holds up.
Yeah.
It's ugly. It still holds
Yeah,
up.
but that like both of those games have very strong gameplay.
Yeah.
Which makes them like I feel almost as if I'm compelled to call it timeless because Doom came out in 1993, which is 24, 25 years ago now, and that game still feels just as good to me as it did 25 years ago.
Right.
And I feel confident. I can't say for certain, but I feel confident that 10 years from now, I'll say the same.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be my de facto answer. And I've said before that I consider Doom to be a perfect video game. So
I'd say like Street Fighter 2 is not like at the time it looked fine, but like
Yeah.
even other fighters of that generation look better than it,
sure, yeah,
but it holds up better than almost all of them.
sure. There were a few games around the time of Street Fighter 2 that like that I personally was more visually impressed by. Like I personally found World Heroes to be more visually impressive because it had more shit going on there. But it wasn't a cooler game though.
Well, sure. I mean, even if we think about like in the arcade, right?
Yeah.
Things like Samurai Showdown, where the camera's panning in and out, and like the character model, the sprites are huge and all that. Like that game visually is better than Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, and that
But Street Fighter 2 holds up much better.
that was a very much an SNK thing too.
Right.
Like a lot of the fighting games that they were putting out then, like a lot of them had that. Like Samurai Showdown had that. Art of Fighting had that.
So I think SNK kind of falls into the other camp where like a lot of the old SNK games, like Metal Slug, for instance, still looks fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, what's a game like that's old that you think because of the visual style, not necessarily modern technology and graphics,
Yeah.
but because the visual style still holds up.
Shit, I recently looked at Contra 3, and I still think that game looks pretty
Contra
great.
still looks all right, yeah.
Contra, like I really think that game still looks like really really great.
You ever play Contra 4?
No.
DS exclusive.
Huh.
Really cool.
Huh.
Yeah. You use the verticality of the top and bottom screen.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Sinead?
For games?
This is a video game show, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I thought we were talking about movies and books. I mean, a lot of things I'm thinking about are just like,
I mean, if you don't got anything, that's all right.
yeah, I don't have
You know.
anything. I like nothing new to really add.
It's-
As far as like, because I feel like a lot of the games I'm thinking about, you can argue that the graphics still look good, just like you did, like Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Yeah.
Sure, but like you look at something like Pitfall doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Right? If that came out today, it would probably not do well. You know, largely based on the visuals. Like, yeah, the gameplay is kind of lacking by today's standards, but you know, Space Invaders doesn't really look good anymore.
Right.
Right?
But the game that design is still solid.
That design is still solid, sure.
You know, I pretty recently, like within the past couple of months or so, played Skitchin.
Oh wow.
And that game, like, and I went into that with my memory of that game as a 10-year-old, and came back to it, and I was like, man, this game visually hasn't aged at all, or aged well at all, rather.
Yeah.
But that game is still really fun. It's just, that's the thing too. It's like it's hard to know whether or not the gameplay is going to stand the test of time, right? Because you're kind of living in it, so it's kind of like it's hard to say. And it's kind of weird to think about like games that we're like really impressed by now, you know, looking dated someday.
And that's why I brought up games like Dead Space, or Donkey Kong Country for that matter. Like both those games I thought were gorgeous when they came out, you know?
Yeah.
And the last time I played Dead Space, which was not long ago, I finally started to be like, this is starting to look not as great as I remember.
Yeah.
You know? So I think for, you know, James' dad and cousin saying that they pick games for graphics, well, like, okay, well, you're loving Destiny today or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
In 2 years, are you going to hate Destiny just because it doesn't visually look as good, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Spyro Year the Dragon is another one I was thinking about.
That game does not look good. You think that looks good?
No, I say it doesn't look good, but the
Okay.
gameplay was solid. Like catching all those eggs,
Yeah.
and then those like racing ones where you had to like.
You're
go
going to
on
get a remaster, I bet you.
Oh sure.
Hopefully.
I see that happening.
I thought it was like a super solid kid game.
Here's the thing, that's Activision, right? They brought back Crash, so
Yeah.
I mean, they brought back Spyro kind of with the Skylanders because they're part of that universe
Yeah.
thing.
yeah.
They did release another, like re-released a Spyro Skylander, so that was kind of cool. Hey, so more recently though, played Rage,
Mm-hmm.
and that game came out in what, 2012,
I don't remember.
like more recently than all the other games that we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And even still, I remember playing it, and like the character models looked okay, but like looking at the environments, like, man, a lot of this, like the indoor environment specifically.
Odd textures.
Yeah.
Like there's textures that don't hold up in that game.
Yeah, it's like I was like, man, this looks a little rough.
Sure.
You know, and it's funny because I'm only 5 years removed from that game, but like that's what I'm talking about though. Like 5 years ago, like that was the standard.
Right.
You know, that was released at the end of a console cycle. So,
Right.
you know, I thought it looked amazing then. And then, you know, I'm playing it today and it's just, like visually doesn't hold up. But the gameplay of that, again, the gameplay of that game is still, you know,
Really fun.
really fun. Now, what about this? Let's flip it. So, what is a game that, like, whose gameplay didn't age well?
That's a good one. GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, like I couldn't tell you how many hours of that game I played, along with probably most people that played that game. I mean, people were crazy about it.
Yeah.
And like those controls just don't work.
Yeah.
You were with me when we were at a local retro game store. I picked up Duke Nukem: A Time to Kill,
Sure.
a game that I loved as a kid.
Yeah.
Popped it in and like, yeah, I can't play games like that anymore.
Yeah. Right stick to look? No?
I don't remember. I think it's tank controls, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember loving that game too, but I don't think that I could go back to it, you know.
Yeah.
There are some games that are hard to go back to.
Echo the Dolphin. I don't know if I'll ever play it again.
I hated that game at the time, man.
Yeah, I think like technology definitely you see that a lot with games that iterate on tech early on.
Sure.
When we first got dual sticks, people don't really know how to use them, so a lot of those games control like garbage, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing it now with VR. Like if VR continues, which it likely will in some fashion, a lot of these early VR games, people probably won't look back on too fondly. You know.
The Kinect game, that Star Wars Kinect game, that gameplay was garbage.
Oh, that game was garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pod racing.
Like that game was
pod-
never good.
That pod racing part was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that as far as like visually aging, I feel like that's gonna hit VR like extra hard.
Yeah.
Because
Screen door and all that.
yeah, and it's when the tech advances like over the course of the next decade or so, like coming back to these early experiences is going to be really difficult.
Well, it's not even the tech advancing. Well, with visuals it is, right? At least to some extent. But like, I think just people learning how to use the tech, learning how to use new tech, right? It was a little bit before we used left stick to walk and right stick to look. You know, it took a minute.
Yeah.
But people will figure it out. Story. That's the other thing he brings in. What's something that you played just for story? Maybe it's an ugly game. Maybe the gameplay's not great, but the story is really good.
That's most of the games I play.
I was about to say, yeah.
I was like most of the games that I
I wouldn't
play.
say the visuals are necessarily bad in the games you play. They're just not impressive, right?
Some of them are bad. Like,
Right.
Especially like the
My Horse Prince.
especially like the indie Atome games.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Uh
But you're
yeah.
there for the story.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a visual novel. I'm not there. Like, novels don't have to be very pretty because most of the time they're just words.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the times it was games that, if like I'm playing specifically for the story, it's because, you know, a lot of people freaked out over the story and like really, like, or like a lot of people, you know, recommended it to me. So I just went in specifically for the story, and
Yeah.
I feel like that might have, in some cases, kind of maybe colored my perception a little bit.
LA Noire is the game that I played specifically on the premise of the story.
Yeah.
But that game was visually impressive at the time.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
I'm glad that it ended up being that way. I'm just saying, like, before then, I wasn't really a fan of any Rockstar games at all before that.
Yeah.
And so LA Noire is kind of like the first one that got me into, like, meh, they can make stuff.
Fuck yeah, they can.
I kind of like get my bias to be gone. And so, yeah, that one was specifically because it's like, I want to be a dirty cop.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I want to be a terrible cop.
Yeah.
Like while it's not a bad looking game in my eyes, like I went into The Last of Us specifically because of the story.
Oh yeah, that's a great looking game. Even the original PS3 launch of that game was really good.
Like I went into that game specifically because of the story, because I really wanted to experience that narrative. And I'm pretty sure, and like my whole interest in the game, you know, Thomas Was Alone, is all about because of what I believe the narrative probably is. in that game. You know.
Yeah, Thomas Was Alone is a good answer. Like the gameplay is definitely there in that game.
Yeah.
But visually, it's just a bunch of squares and rectangles.
Sure.
You know.
And there are games that have that have like a very like minimal amount of gameplay or interaction. Like Sinead was talking about, visual novels, or the games that the game Lifeline that you and I were.
Oh
very
yeah,
interested in,
that's a really good one, dude. So for those that don't know, we did check it out on a game called Lifeline. I think there's 3 of them now, 4 of them now.
Yeah, something like that.
Or it's like there's several games in this genre now. It's a mobile game where like you get these text messages from some character, and that's literally all it is text, but it unravels a larger story as it goes on.
Yeah. And that game is just like, it's all story. So if like,
That's a real good answer.
and if the story isn't hitting you, then you're just gonna bounce right off of it.
Sure.
I'm gonna say Game of Thrones Telltale game
Yeah.
because the visuals not great on it, gameplay
Yeah.
not that great.
yeah.
But I really wanted to know more about this universe, and I wanted
Telltale
to be a
games in
part of it.
general, right?
They can't. Yeah. With their games, like they can't. Like they can't survive if there's no story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
And
so.
like that's their whole
That's a
thing.
good answer too.
Is like if there's a, like, I haven't played a Telltale game whose story I wasn't like at least somewhat into, but
You never played the Jurassic Park game?
no, I never played it.
That's not that bad. That's more old school point and click. That's before, they were doing basically a choose your own adventure movie, Like with Back to the Future, it was how does this thing react to that thing, which they've since stopped almost completely.
Do you feel like point and click works now?
Yes, absolutely, I do. It's for a certain audience, but it isn't everything.
Yeah. Sure.
That audience might not be huge, but they're there.
Yeah.
So I used Odin Sphere as my example for something that, checks all these marks, and for me, that's what makes a really fantastic game, right? Odin Sphere's art style, even the PS2 version, still looks good. If
Yeah.
that game came out today, if that game comes out in 10 years from now, it's still going to look good.
Sure.
How many discs was it?
I don't know.
again?
It's still going to play good.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like it was one.
The music's still going to
Was
be
it?
good.
Oh yeah. Well,
The
I'm
story
thinking-
is still going to be good. What is a game like that for you guys? What is something that you think like ticks all those boxes? Visual, story, gameplay, whatever it might be.
Shit.
I know it's hard to answer like on the spot, but
Well, because like all the games that I can think of, like I know that they're gonna look old.
Yeah.
At some point. And they
but
might
like
even look old
like the
now.
examples I gave him, like I know you're not super into it, but like Okami is like that's probably always going to look pretty good.
Yeah. I feel like Wind Waker. Definitely hits all those boxes for me. I think that I feel like that the visual style of that game is charming as hell, and I don't think I can't conceive of getting tired of looking at that game.
And the gameplay holds up,
The
right?
game, yeah. And the story is really cool too. So it's like, the whole story of this this island boy like going off on this grand adventure.
Yeah, a lot of
you know,
people
and,
say Wind Waker has the best story.
it's just really cool to me.
Yeah.
I think the Wind Waker would probably be that one.
Shanae, you got anything?
I was actually going to say like a lot of Legend of Zelda games I feel like can fit that bill.
Yeah.
But a lot of them will age though, right? Like a lot of 3D ones. There
Oh,
will
yeah.
come a point where Skyward Sword doesn't really look good. Twilight Princess already kind of doesn't look good.
Ocarina of Time doesn't look good at all.
Yeah.
I think that like there'll also still be that nostalgia factor, and like the gameplay would make it's kind of like, and to have it just be kind of a stylized thing
So
in people's minds.
it's cool you bring that up because that's something that I wanted to get into is like people look back on like old retro games like NES, SNES, and like that art style people still appreciate, right? Pixel art people still appreciate, but then we get into low poly games, right? 32-bit, 64-bit low poly 3D games. Will there come a time where people look back on those fondly from a visual perspective? Will people be as into low poly 3D models as they are into pixel art today?
Like will people be making new low poly games?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we've seen some of them, like, not to talk about it again, but like Devil Daggers is a low poly modern game.
Sure. Yeah, I think that there's definitely going to be an audience for that, right? Because
We just need more time, or what?
I don't know what it is. I think that Like what was that? What was that? That game that came out that was like basically like a Resident Evil fan project. I feel like Contagion or something like
I
that.
don't know.
But it was basically like it was this low poly game that was basically Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And people seem to like, from what I could understand, people seem to kind of appreciate that. And I think that there is some nostalgia for it, but I think that's like I feel like the audience for that is going to actually be smaller than the people who are really into pixel art, because I just think like overall it's just kind of less charming.
Sure.
Because there are ways to take pixel art and have that shit still look cool.
Right.
Like River City Ransom Underground, for example. Like
Yeah.
that shit still looks cool. Like
Any Capcom fighter, right?
Yeah.
Any of the like Street Fighter 3 Alpha series, like those all still look awesome.
but like as far as low poly, like I don't care how many frames you add to it, it's still not going to look that great.
Right.
So like then you have to then I guess like the question is like what is the end game with that then? Like what is the point of doing that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like anybody who was playing those games, like they were playing them because like that's as good as games looked at the time.
Right.
And those are the kind of people who always want.
It's just
the
like
best looking game.
you look at something like recent Call of Duty games, and like in 20 years, are people going to look back on those and say, "Man, that art style, that you know, like that, you know, like is that going to be a thing?"
I think that is probably going to be less of a thing once that, because we talked about it before. Like there's going to be a point where it just levels off.
Right.
And I think that might be a thing at some, like when people are going to look back at the first Modern Warfare and be like, yikes. But
See, and part of me thinks that we're there, but like there's been several times throughout my life where I thought we were there.
Yeah.
When I saw Donkey Kong Country, I didn't think games were ever going to look that good.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think anything would ever look better than that, you know?
yeah, but like there's
And it's funny to think about that now. Like how ridiculous is that, you know?
but like at the same time, it's like, how real can you make something look? Right?
Yeah.
There's got to be there has to be, like I don't know where it is, because there's always like those little details that they like build on top of, right? Like maybe we'll put more strands of hair in there, or maybe we'll add some wrinkles to the skin or something. There's always like that small detail
Well,
they can add, but like what happens when we run out of those little details then?
I don't know. I think there's always more details, right? I think about a game like Bound, and I talk about Bound's movement, and the Bound is a pretty low poly game,
Right.
But the movement's fantastic, and there's so many individual moving things at one time. Like on any given screen, there's like hundreds of things moving individually, right? But they're all low poly. So like the next step is to make that many like highly textured objects that can move at once. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
But I mean, what I think is that at some point we will get there.
Sure.
We'll get to the point where it's like, okay, well, what do we improve upon now? Like, how do we make this look more real than it looks now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're gonna go to FMV, because I mean, we tried that and like,
Well, we're doing that more now than
Yeah.
we have been in a long time.
but I don't think that's ever gonna be
Hellblade, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think. But Hellblade is like the FMV. The FMV is there to like kind of complement the 3D assets in the game.
Sure.
As opposed to it being like the main focus, like like a game like Sewer Shark or something.
Yeah.
I don't think that FMV is ever going to be to the point where it was at the early 90s, where it was like people like, FMV is always a good idea. That's a sound investment because that's as realistic as you can make it, right? But I don't think that we're...
I don't know, man. I think like when you think about like PlayLink,
Yeah.
and games like Night Trap,
Yeah.
like I think you could do FMV through PlayLink in a very interesting way. And at that point, you're not having to render anything really, you know. But don't get me wrong, I never think that will be the standard.
Sure.
I don't,
Well,
I don't think all games will ever be that.
If we get
but-
more FMV, it's going to be relegated to like a specific genre or something.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think that there's going to be a lot of point and click adventure games that are FMV. If FMV comes back in the way that it was like in the early 90s, I think that like a lot of it's going to be kind of the same as it was in the early 90s, where a lot of it was like point and click adventure shit.
Yeah.
But I think that we're at one point we're going to level off, and we're just going to say, okay, well, now we're at the point where this game here looks as good as a game that came out 5 years prior, and then I'm sure that at some point somebody's gonna find some like huge advance to like make games look even better
Sure.
like somehow, and then like we'll kind of be back where we are now. But
So you had messaged us. We do a group text. You messaged me, both of us yesterday, talking about Ruiner and saying I can't wait to talk to you guys about Ruiner. And I said that I was surprised to hear that, right? And in thinking about it, like I probably shouldn't have been surprised. The reason I was surprised is that everybody I hear talking about Ruiner is saying that it's definitely style over substance. It's a very flashy game. It looks really cool. The environments are cool. But as far as the gameplay there, it's kind of just middle of the road. But like, I shouldn't have thought that because I know you're into this whole, neon future shit.
Yeah.
But is that it? Like, is that why you like Ruiner? Is mostly for the style of that game, or?
I feel like that's definitely what initially attracted me to the game.
Yeah.
Especially like before I had any hands on it. Before, when we saw that trailer at during Devolver's E3 thing, I was like, man, that looks badass. I want to get more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing.
And then then actually playing it, I like games. Like it's kind of like what Shanae says about like power fantasies, right? I like games that like make me feel like an unstoppable badass.
Right.
And I feel that Ruiner very much does that, like time and again, especially with how many guys it's throwing at you.
Yeah.
Like it does different things to keep that going. And I understand that like on service level, there are a lot of people who feel like it's kind of just it's kind of shallow or it's just average, right? But
There's just a lot of twin stick shooters these days.
But I think that when you take an existing concept like that, it very much matters like what you can layer on top of it. And I think that with Ruiner, a lot of it is that style that they evoke in that game.
Sure.
Like the sound, like the colors that they use. Like there's a lot of red and blacks in that game.
Yeah.
There's and then also like the little camera tricks, right? Find like for example, you kill a guy, his gun flies up in the air. Camera slows down, you run over and catch it, you start shooting, and everything speeds back up again.
Right.
Like it's shit like that gets those dopamine receptors firing off.
Yeah.
So,
Style.
Yeah. So a lot of that, like with that, like a lot of that is the style. I feel like that game is going to visually, it's gonna age like a lot sooner than I would like it to. But as of right now, it's a really great experience.
Sure.
So.
No, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It sounds dope.
Yeah, I'm gonna like after the show, I'm gonna boot that shit up so you guys can see it.
I guess that's like.
I'm excited.
I guess that's where, I guess inevitably that's where we could go last is like. There's no right or wrong answer to James's question.
Sure.
Like,
It's all
if you
subjective.
play games just for graphics, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And if you play games just for gameplay or just for story, there's nothing wrong with that.
It does kind of make me feel disappointed when I have come across those people, because especially working in like a retail place for a while and people just talking about like, oh, well, that game like looks terrible or whatever now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, okay. It still plays fine. It's still fun. It still has value.
But you can
And
see like the fact that you might not be as immersed into a game if it just looks fucking gross, right?
Oh, I mean, if it just looks terrible, yeah. There's a lot of there's games like that. I'm not
Yeah.
saying there's not, but like that I looked at it and I was just like, I am never going to play that. It looks like hot garbage.
Yeah.
But like saying something that is like known to be a good game.
There's that cowboy game that we keep coming across that a lot of people are speaking highly of. I think it's called West of Loathing. And it's basically stick figures. And critically, it's doing extremely well.
Yeah, I can't do it.
People seem to really enjoy that game, and I'm like, I don't want to play that. I don't want to play it with how it looks. I don't.
I'm saying something like Dead Space.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Dead Space showing its age.
But it's no different, though.
No, I'm saying showing its age a little bit, and then just saying that like it can't be a good game,
Sure.
or that like just basically just shitting on games because they're not like how like the question.
But can
is
you
it-
argue? I mean, can you really argue that it's not more enjoyable? Right? Dead Space when it came out, and graphics and gaming being where it was at that point, where Dead Space was a gorgeous looking game, was probably more enjoyable then than it is now. at least to some people.
I'm not saying that you can't like value graphics. It makes me makes me disappointed that they're not like that. The people I come across that aren't willing.
They might be missing out on a good experience.
Yeah, they might
Sure,
be just
sure.
like don't just shit on something. I'm not saying don't have an opinion and you can't just like graphics and you need that for your immersion.
Right.
If you do, that's fine. Just don't shit on other people's stuff. Is basically what I'm trying to come up to.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're like talking about anybody. Oh, that's a bad game because of how it looks. You know, like I don't think West of Loathing is a bad game. Clearly, it's a very good game. It's just I don't want to look at that. I don't.
And there have been games where like, you know, a game that might have been recommended to me. Like there's a game that Tom's gonna do for Check It Out next week. That it's a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the video for that game. That style isn't for me. But like I theorize that if I were to actually play the game, like it would probably feel really good, but I just probably wouldn't enjoy looking at it.
Yeah.
I probably would have never played Hidden Folks if you didn't gift
Yeah.
that to me.
Yeah.
Cause I was like, I don't really like do like hidden object video games. I've always just like done books and stuff.
Yeah.
And B, it's not colorful or pastel, so I probably wouldn't have given it a second
Yeah.
class.
It
But
gives
I'm
a very
glad.
Gary Larson feel to it.
I'm glad though. I'm glad that you. Thank you again for giving that to me. It was.
You hate it. It's fine. It's whatever. You know.
I beat it. I beat it, and at one point I was playing it and I couldn't find something, and I yelled for Berto to come over.
Did
here
you
and
find everything?
Yes.
You bitch.
And that's a game that I would.
That will be a check it out at some point.
I feel like that's a game that I would probably only play over here. I can't.
I'm telling you, you everybody download Hidden Folks.
Okay.
You get up early on your weekend.
Get your
You get
coffee.
your cup of coffee,
Yeah.
and you just chill with that game. Maybe a podcast on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Save Continue podcast. Doesn't have to be. Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
And it's it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
I mean, I had fun looking for objects with Shanae. I just don't feel like I would have fun looking for objects by myself.
Yeah.
Because I
And, like,
make everything fun.
It's kind of like what Shanae was saying. It's like it's not very colorful, so like it wouldn't hold my attention for very long because I'm a child.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You are a child though.
No, I was talking about like going through like this like the library on like Steam. I probably wouldn't have given it a second glance because it's like it's not colorful or pastel.
sure.
And I actually liked the art style. That's what got me to look at it. But,
Oh well,
yeah.
if you go through, it just says like Hidden Folks and like
Yeah.
the bubble letters. So I didn't really I didn't look at more of it because it just had the one picture on there.
Well, it looks like your Daniel Johnston sticker.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Shanae,
Yes.
what do you want to promote?
Oh, I'm excited. Okay, so I have only ever watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer in like sporadic episodes on TV, and I'm watching it right now for the first time.
Yes.
And
I'm listening, Shanae.
All right, Fraser.
because this is how because this is how crazy I am. I was like on season 1 halfway through and then immediately went and tried to find an episode by episode review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer so I could listen to a podcast about Buffy the Vampire Slayer when I couldn't watch it.
Why not? Yeah.
Did you find one?
I did, and it has the best name.
Is it called Buffy Business?
Buffering the Vampire Slayer. For like
It's a good name.
for a podcast.
good name.
Yeah.
It's all right.
One of the ladies on there, her name's Janelle Youngs. She actually has done one of my favorite cover songs like ever, and I listened to it years ago, and I heard her voice, and I'd forgotten about it, and immediately was reminded, and I was like, oh my god, that was so amazing. So it's pretty. So it's her and her wife.
My wife.
Borat.
So it's her, it's her and her wife going through it. It's pretty fun. They have like some guests that have like worked in like film industry, and they talk about some of the other stuff. They also just talk about because they were the same age as Buffy when the show was out, like really what their opinion of what was going around them and their opinion of it, like the show then, and kind of just like how they've evolved and now looking back on it. And
I
it's-
tried to watch it. I can't get into it.
The first season's real hard.
Yeah, that's all I've
Why?
watched.
Like what? Like
it's-
like
it's-
just nothing happened.
Well, like,
I'll talk about
have
that.
you seen the movie, Shanae? Have you seen the original movie?
I will talk about that after the podcast because that's a whole nother topic. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you are into listening to girls talk about Buffy,
Also, Angel.
All right, girls.
Yeah, that
women,
isn't that the show?
women,
Isn't that,
women talking about
isn't that the show
What are
where
your
Angel
thoughts
come
on
from?
Angel?
Yeah, Michael Boreanaz.
Um.
Boreanaz.
That's the
I like
original Arrow Flash.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna be. I liked Angel. I liked Angel the most
Because he was sexy.
in season 1.
Did you find him attractive?
Did you
No.
do you find Michael
No.
Boreanaz attractive?
He looks like he came out of the womb looking 40.
Wow.
Wow. Sorry, Michael. Or is
I
it
li-
David Boreanaz?
But
I
then
wonder if he's verified.
but I don't know. So far I like the storylines. I think they're interesting.
Cool.
I think it's David Boreanaz.
I like yeah. There's probably things that I really wouldn't think about too terribly much about the show. Like there's like monsters that really represent other struggles. As far as like going through like life. And I like that they don't really baby the audience as like other like TV shows do. Like they don't like this is the joke ta-da. And and like and it's just like yeah, and like there's like a lot of things about the writing, like they made up a lot of the jokes that like didn't exist at all during that time, but like only for Buffy, so like to help with it being dated.
Wait,
like,
when does the show take place?
it's actually over 20 years old now.
So modern times back then.
So 90s, mid 90s. Yeah, like
2000s.
How many actual
mid-90s to
vampires
early
are on that show?
2000s. Thank you very
Shanae.
much.
How many actual vampires are on that show?
3, 4, 5, 6. Of the 6 Buffy video games, how many have you played?
None yet.
Okay.
Do they
None
all
yet.
star Sarah Michelle Gellar?
Well, she's on the cover of most of them, but I don't know that they all do.
Okay.
Oh gosh, she's
I
so
feel
fun.
I feel like some of them must be based off the movie because of their release date.
How do you fig?
Some of them were significantly older.
Like from like the 80s.
Well, no, but like
90s.
early 90s. Yeah.
Uh,
No, I'm wrong. Actually, they're all from the 2000s.
did you establish whether or not you had actually seen the movie?
She doesn't want to talk about it here.
Oh, I
She
see.
don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
No, season 1 and the movie and all of that is what I wanted to talk about later because I was going to expand upon it.
Okay.
But
Hold on.
I mean, we can make an episode for you to talk about Buffy if you want to do that.
Do you want to do that? You want to talk about Buffy? But
Today's Buffy hour.
here's the catch, though, Shanae. You have to if we do that episode, you have to have at least played one of the Buffy games.
let me get to season 5 because I'm more than I'm about I'm about halfway.
I'm gonna
through
lose
season
interest
3.
by then.
Oh, I've only been watching it for like a week and a half, and
Yeah.
I'm already almost finished with season 3.
But I'm starting
Give
to
me
lose
another
interest
week.
now.
All right, guys, that's all I got about Buffy.
All right.
Take us out, Tom.
Bye bye.
We love you guys. If you want to contact us, email us at savecontinuepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram,
How do they find us on Facebook and Instagram?
because we are on as Save Continue Pod.
Cast.
Cast? Oh, that's podcast? Okay.
Yeah.
I know our social media stuff.
You're still high from Coachella.
Oh, real quick, hold on. My phone's gonna make a noise. Give me a second. Give me a second here.
What?
Just give me a second here.
Oh my gosh. You can also just, reach out to us on our own social medias.
Yeah. Shanae's verified on
Uh,
Facebook. So
There's not many Shanae Howards.
yeah. How many are there?
Not many.
Okay.
Real quick. Ghetto Nerd Society.
Uh-huh.
Listen to the show, and he says, we really helped him get through the workday. I think that's really awesome.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
glad.
Hey, thanks for listening, man. We're glad we can help out.
And
Yeah, anybody who's like
That's
messaged
it.
us,
Don't
Tommy's
message us.
normally the one who responds on social medias. He's a lot better about it than I am.
remember
and-
when you were gonna run all the social medias?
Yeah.
Well, that didn't
Yours-
happen, obviously. That's not the point right now. The point is, we appreciate it, even if not all of us like contribute as much. It like we all share it when we do see the stuff, and
Yeah, when you send something that I think is worthy, I send it to these guys.
Yeah. All right.
which is everything,
You're losing them.
which is everything. Cause yeah, it's nice to hear. So it's like.
Makes you
So-
feel good.
I feel
Well,
good.
not only that, it's just like we want to respond. So if like we say anything that like you think that is incorrect
Mm-hmm.
or something you want to expand upon,
Don't correct me. I've told you this before.
we all talk about it and it's pretty fun. So thank you guys. We hope you have a great week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.